Home Buyers Guide information sessions. Today is our first episode, and I'm here with a special guest.
Yes, I am ready.
Before we get on to the topic, Listen in Ontario, I'm going to allow our special guest to introduce herself to us.
Thank you, Ibrahim. This is Shirlyn Antonio. I have been in the business for quite a few years now, and I'm thinking that with my knowledge and experience, I've been able to assist quite a few people in not only the leasing portion, but also with the buying and selling and investing in Ontario. Leasing is confined more on a contractual basis where you're going to be signing with a landlord for at least minimum a year with the notion that you are going to be that candidate that's going to be, meeting all the criteria as well as being able to not only qualify, but it's going to care for that property while in your possession. Leasing in Ontario at this present time is one of the most stressful process, and it's very important to know what documents are required. In Ontario, as you can tell, the market right now is very, very difficult to get into any homes because of the price that is actually being asked. But for leasing is also can be very stressful. And the reason I say stressful is because landlord wants to make sure that the people
Hmm.
who are coming into the home are qualified. So there's very intense screening that's going to be done when it comes to the applicants themselves. So a lot of people think, it's renting. Why do I need to do all of this? Why do I have to provide so much information? Why do I need to do this? Because you know what? Landlords are skeptical. They want to make sure they have the right candidates. And just like you want to make sure you're going into a home that's safe, that's going to have all of the right, tools or amenities that you want when you're paying a certain amount of fee to get that particular home that you're looking for. So let's start with the basics. First of all, if you're a newcomer, if you're new, if it's the first time you're going to be renting, the first thing we say to everyone, try your best to know if you're qualified before you start that process. And the reason I say that is because we do need things, or when I say we as realtors who are representing a tenant or a landlord, we need to see things such as an Equifax report. We want to make sure that you're employed. We want to make sure you have good references. We also want to make sure that you've had a job for at least a year, sometimes 2 years. So we're going to need things to support these things, such as your 2 to 3 months pay stub or something to the effect that we can see a bank statement to make sure we can probably cross-reference that what you're saying that you're making and what's being deducted is actually
Hmm.
coming out. So we can see at the end of the day what the balance is in your account and if you can afford to lease. So again, going back to renting, um, a lot of people don't know the process. And what I do encourage individuals to do is to please reach out to a realtor. A realtor is actually someone who can really guide you and provide you with what all the different properties are available in your budget. And so we can not only choose or show you the best locations, but we can also kind of narrow it down as in what comes with better amenities, what fits your budget, what we think will be a better area for you to settle into. And so we do have all these different things at our fingertip. And the good thing is that you will be protected in a sense, as in, we do have the skill set to show you what's out there, but we also are insured and we do make sure that you are going to be protected as much as possible when it comes to being protected in getting that property that you're hoping to lease. And it also goes for the landlord who also has a realtor, and that realtor is to make sure that the landlord is also being protected by getting right qualified individuals to be in their home. So we don't get paid by you. In a nutshell, it is the landlord who pays our fees. But let's just say technically, when we do sign a buyer agreement, which means that you are my tenant or my client, and I'm actually, going to be helping you to be able to secure property. We have an agreement, which is going to be at least between myself and you, saying that we are binding in a contract that I'm going to assist you. And, as a client, we want to make sure that if you're with me and I'm helping you, that there is that particular, say, faithfulness in continuing that relationship. And so sometimes when we do find that that contract is breach in some sense without the proper documentation where we actually release you by saying you don't longer have an agreement, we can actually ask you to pay for time. So we do encourage all the time to make sure that if you're in any kind of contract with a realtor, that you do follow through and you do stay faithful to that realtor unless there's a document signing that we no longer want to be represented by ourselves. So moving forward, yes, so the landlord do pay the fee for us to bring the best candidate to them. So start with the first documentation. As I mentioned, we do have something that's called a credit report. We will need to see what your credit report is. And the documents that we do have and we do encourage is an Equifax, a full Equifax report. This report will give us a great understanding of what your liabilities are, what it is that you owe if you were ever in default. So it's a snapshot pretty much of your history of what you've done when it came to the financial aspect of your life. And we do look for anything that is between 700 to 750. Sometimes, yes, we do have applicants who come in a little bit less than 700. But then again, when that's the case, it could be because of something minor. It could have been because of credit loans, student loans. You were young and you just had loans, you weren't paying them on time, or you had a car and you weren't really the best because you were young. And once these situations explain, and we do see that, well, you're making good income and you have surpassed that and you're actually doing much better, there are times when we will be able to speak with the landlord and vouch that, let's just take a look at this individual now. He's doing better. He's making his payments. Things are much better. And we know that he will be able to pay that rental fee. So we do encourage you, before you start, check to see what your credit score is. Make sure that you do have something a little bit above 700. If not, start paying on those liabilities as best as you can. Try to bring that score up. So when we start the process, you're not going to be disappointed in knowing that you can't afford to get the home that you're hoping to lease. That being said, we do provide you with what we call a rental application. And that rental application is something that you're going to complete. It's going to ask for your name. It's going to ask for some information, as in where are the last two places you've lived in the last 2 years, your employment history, what your financial obligations, and some references. And that's the document we would also pass on to the landlord's agent for them to do some cross analysis and to see if they can maybe get some history on you and to ask your references or a place of employment about who you are character wise. And at least we can narrow that down along with your financial outlook from your credit application before we proceed. We will need a government photo ID. And again, I always encourage individuals, try and get an official Canadian ID if you can. Because sometimes, believe it or not, when somebody else, brings in a document from another country, it tends to bring up like red flags to the landlords because they're thinking this person might one day leave. So if you have like a driver's license or some sort of ID that is something that's acceptable, we ask you to please try and present those, just at least to avoid any sort of hiccups along the way. Employment letter. When it comes to employment, we like to see stability. So if you're in a job for at least 2 years, it's fantastic. If you're a person who tends to jump from job to job, sometimes it's not always the best outlook because it means maybe you wasn't the best candidate and you tend to always maybe lose your job. But some people might not look at it, hey, I was just trying my best to get a better job. They may look at it and maybe there's an issue where you're losing your job and every 6 months you have to get one. So landlords thinking that there might be a chance that this person might lose the job if it's something to do with their character. So we do encourage you to please try your best to keep those employment for at least a little bit longer to show good, good ethics when it comes to your working standards. That being said, we need 2 to 3 months pay stub. So we want to be able to see the kind of money that you're getting. And we encourage you to, if you can't, say have the job that will support the kind of rental you're looking for, we ask that you probably team up with somebody else. If it's a spouse or a friend or so, by at least two rental applications will be better than one if you know that you only make 30,000, 35,000. Because when you do the math and you're looking at a place about 2,500, 2,700 a month, that's already, in a nutshell, a little bit over what you can afford when you're looking at your basic necessities of life. So, I mean, yes, you have a job, but then you have to ask yourself, can you afford living with someone else, living and paying for that lease? So if you can't, you don't have someone and you want to by all means get a place, we encourage you to try and see if there's somebody that will co-sign you, someone who can at least take over the financial obligations of themselves as well as for yourself in case anything does happen. And that person have to be also in very good credit standard. They have to be above the 700. Their income has to be substantial. And of course, they come with all the great references as well to say, yes, this individual might not have the income, but if anything, I'm able to step in and help with that lease. So in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say, before you start this process, which is a very big step when it comes to leaving your home or, trying to say, I want to be independent and living on my own, you have to ask yourself, am I ready for that process? Try your best to look and see in a snapshot what your credit score is, and then you look at your income. If income cannot be supported, we ask you to at least
I
try and
see.
raise some
Interesting.
funds for at least, 6 months or so to at least show that you do have funds in the bank to support the rent in case anything does happen, God forbid. As well as if you do have a lower income, but you've saved a while, that could also be held as an option to show landlords that he might have a lower income, but so far he has raised, let's just say 60,000. He's been saving for a while. And so if it's something that you would like to negotiate with the landlord, which is not, it's not required by law, it's just 1 month that we're hoping that you can put down, which is part of what the government will advise on. But if you really want that place and you're saying I can afford it, by all means you can negotiate with the landlord, and with your permission, you can put down a little bit more down as down payment to show good faithfulness in a sense, and to show the landlord that I don't have that great income, but at least I have enough to show that for at least 6 months I can put down some money towards that rent. Um, and along that line, when you do put down any amount on rent, just to let you know, it's not going to be the first couple months. Normally, it will be your first month, and the rest will be on the back end of that year contract. So, for example, if you took a place and it's from January to December and you put 6 months down, your first month will be, let's just say January 2nd, you got the place. That will be for the first month. You put 1 month down, but the last five will be from December, November, October, September coming up. So at least you have to pay for the next month, February, March, April going forward, just to be clear. So far, yeah. So it is a lengthy process, and what a lot of realtors really don't like going into it for leases because it's a lot of work. It is stressful on the applicants as well. And sometimes it can get a little bit tedious in a sense because sometimes individuals don't know where to want to be and they just look for places that will be the cheapest for them. So sometimes you might have one applicant who say, let's try Brampton. And then they're from Brampton, they're in Markham, and from Markham, they're in Toronto. So it tends to be a little bit hard, and majority of the time it doesn't work out. So not a lot of realtors will go for leases just because of the amount of work it involves. And of course, the amount of work and paperwork is involved for the applicant who will get frustrated at times to say, I'm not sure why I need to present all of these. But to be rest assured, it is a requirement. It is something that we as realtors have to present on your behalf. Again, landlords want to make sure that they do have the right people within their properties. And so it's a lengthy process to make sure that both parties on each side are represented fully and are qualified for those particular properties. You have two individuals, it's a much better, say, outcome in case something does happen to either one of those applicants. It could be losing a job, it could be sickness that you can't really carry that lease anymore. And of course, it's good to at least have one person that at least could be relied on for at least a month or two, whatever length of time it takes for that person to be able to start contributing a little bit more. Because, the more the merrier, right? One or two applicants is much better than one. If it's one applicant, again, as long as you have that income to support the lease, it's fine. And again, sometimes the size of the place too, because if it's a really tight place, yeah, maybe just one person is all it needs. But when it's two people within a two-bedroom or a big enough space for two, it is much better recommended for the landlord's, I guess, viewpoint that will give them that security of having that individual. And then again, if it's just yourself and we touch base on if, again, your income is not the best or there's a little bit of a situation with your credit score, having that co-signer, again, is a guarantee that that person is there to, to give you the support you need in case you do need some sort of financial assistance if anything goes wrong and you can't pay that rent. And you look at what the bottom line is at the end of every month, what you're taking home, it gives us an idea of what your affordability is. So no matter how much money you make, it's how you spend it, and how you are diligent with paying your fees and whether or not you can keep up with the amount of money that you owe. So again, it's no rocket science. I mean, you make money, you have to save money, and you have to be able to support your lifestyle. You can't make money and then all that money goes into expenses or debt. So at the end of the day, we just want to make sure that whatever you have left back, it is enough to cover your rent, and you won't be in a situation where you can't because of the all the liabilities that you owe. So that's why it's very important for us to have that full credit report for us to really know exactly what your liabilities are and how much is in your pocket at the end of the month. We know when individuals come in and they have great jobs, you could say you're a lawyer, a doctor, and everything. We're like, oh, great. So definitely income is there. But then again, if your history is showing us something different, it doesn't matter who you are. We want to be able to know and to show that landlord that you can support the rental because you have enough in your account as well as from what you're making that can cover that rental agreement that you have signed for with that landlord. I can be reached by either email, phone, any kind of means that you can think of. You can call me at 647-241-7106. That is my cell phone. Or by email, SHIRLYNA, as in Apple, homes with an S at gmail.com. That is my email address. And or you can always call my office in Oakville, Royal LePage Real Estate Services, 905-257-3633, and they will be able to either page or transfer the call to me. But again, in a nutshell, I am here to answer any questions. If you have never leased before and you think it's something you're hoping to get into, I can send you a snapshot of what's required so at least you can have that at your fingertips so you can get the process started. And when it comes to buying or leasing, it's also the same. I do work hand in hand with team members who can assist in helping you get the approval you need for a mortgage. And I will be here along the way to help you navigate to that point. But for now, we're going to start with the leasing because I think that's where everyone needs to start off from. And then we will work our way up to the last section of owning a home in Ontario or within Canada.